Let's go!
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. Did you miss us? I missed us. So much so, we're recording this all over again. So here at episode 51, we're talking Fun Size Patrol because, well, hey, it's been, 6 months since we recorded a new episode. We figured, well, hey, we got new Doom Patrol. So definitely eager to talk about that with you guys. And also, joining me in this fun little ride as we discuss the 9 episodes of Doom Patrol Season 2, I want everybody please welcome back to Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, DJ Nick from the Whiskey and Cigarette Show, the Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, Happiness and Darkness, the superhero movie podcast, and I'm sure many other things that I'm forgetting right now, but those are the highlights. And DJ Nick, thank you so much for agreeing to join me here as we talk Doom Patrol Season 2. How you doing?
Hey, Charles. Well, I'm wonderful today. I'm so excited about this new season. There's definitely a lot to unpack, and I'm just so honored. Already having had the chance to be on the show multiple times, probably more than I should be on. I wonder, I'm like, am I overstaying my welcome? I wonder. But, I really want to thank you so much. And I'm so looking forward to starting to unpack this brand new season of Doom Patrol.
Exactly. So, like I said, here at episode 51, we're talking Fun Size Patrol, the first episode of Doom Patrol Season 2 that just came out, along with episodes 2 and 3 on June 25th, 2020. I know, it's very tempting for me right now to talk about those other 2 episodes, but I'm going to try and restrain myself. We're gonna get through this. We're gonna do this on a weekly basis. And for anybody that's wondering where Jesse is, unfortunately, he did not have the same reaction to this episode as I did. His was a bit negative, and without getting too far into the weeds on this, he's not sure if he's going to continue with the series. So we talked it over, and I told Jesse that if it was okay, I was going to go reach out to someone to join me on the podcast. And the first person I thought of was you, Nick. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, because I know you're such an enthusiastic person, and I know how much you love talking superheroes. So, and you've been on the podcast before, obviously, so it made perfect sense for you to be my first target as in the quest for somebody to fill in here. Thank you so much for agreeing to join this with me, my friend. I'm really happy to talk to you.
Well, Charles, you know what? I mean, it's impossible to refuse. It's like, you're kind of like the Godfather here. You made me an offer that I couldn't refuse,
Which an offer can refuse. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And, that will come back someday, but we're not, just putting it there.
So what you're saying is, one day you will ask a favor of me. That day may never come, but
exactly.
Should it happen? So, yeah. So,
well, I'm Italian, so you never know.
I wasn't even going to bring that up. I really wasn't. But you can see how the kind of fun we're going to have here today. So, so Nick was kind enough to join us. Obviously, he's been on the podcast before because, hey, he helped us with our season reviews here on Titan Talk, where we talk Titan seasons 1 and 2, and also Doom Patrol season 1. So I think he's got the qualifications. As far as I'm concerned, he does.
I try to, at least, Charles.
I think you more than succeed, sir. So this episode, Fun Size Patrol, written by Jeremy Carver, who previously wrote the pilot in Ezekiel Patrol and is the current showrunner on Doom Patrol, along with Shoshana Sachi, who wrote the episodes Donkey Patrol, Paw Patrol, Cyborg Patrol, and Ezekiel Patrol. And this episode was directed by Christopher Manley, who directed the season 1 episode Doom Patrol Patrol. If everybody got that. So
that's a lot of patrols.
It's a lot of patrols. So yeah, like I said, the first time we tried to record this, Doom Patrol squared. Let's just put it there.
Yeah, that's right.
So this episode, most notably because we get the introduction of Abigail Shapiro as Doom Patrol fan favorite Dorothy Spinner, who we kind of saw a little bit in the season 1 finale. With a little, like seeing her like her arm or her leg or what have you, because they hadn't.
I think that's the back of her head.
The back of her head, yeah, exactly. Because they hadn't cast the actress yet. So finally, we get to meet Dorothy properly, and it's a big introduction. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about Dorothy, and we get the return of Mark Sheppard as Willoughby Kipling.
Yay!
Who was great in the season 1 episodes Cold Patrol and Paw Patrol. So glad to see him back, and hopefully this will not be the last time we see him. Fingers crossed.
Yes,
Lex Lang as the voice of the Candlemaker, who gets teased in this episode. This is probably going to be the season 2 big bad, I'm presuming. So stay tuned. Lex Lang is a notable vocal artist. I know him from playing Hawkman on Justice League Unlimited, and he's been in many, many other shows. Some I've probably watched, but I can't quite recall offhand. But I know that he does a lot of voice work. So perfect choice as far as I'm concerned to do the voice of the Candlemaker. Vanessa Cater as Darling Come Home, who is just simply called Darling here. She's one of Dorothy's imaginary friends. We have Katie Gunderson as Kate Steele, who we haven't seen since the pilot, but she is Cliff's, wife that gets killed later on. But here in this episode, we kind of see her as the girl that Cliff knocks up and becomes pregnant with their daughter, Clara. And she's been also in episodes of Leverage and Aquarius, which is a David Duchovny show that I gather you're familiar with, Nick.
Oh, yes. I mean, and I think anybody who's a fan of, or shall we say, is interested in the Charles Manson story should definitely check out this show. I really enjoyed it. I mean, aside, of course, from knowing David Duchovny in X-Files.
Right.
But, being a big fan of true crime and such, I ate this show up. I mean, anybody who's interested in Charles Manson, definitely check it out.
It was a very intriguing show. I did watch it. It was obviously not on very long, but I did enjoy it while it was on. Yeah. Michael Harney is introduced as R.J. Steele, Cliff's redneck father, and he's probably notable to Buffy the Vampire Slayer fans because he played Xander's father on that series. Uh-huh. And he was also on episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Deadwood, which is a particular favorite of mine, and Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, my mom's a big fan of that show.
Yeah. And, we also had Julie McNiven as Cheryl Traynor, who makes her return. And then we have the 2 actors, John Schmiedes as the adult Gary Traynor and Carson Minier as the younger Gary, making their appearance here. Trivia this time, just to give a little background from the comics, Dorothy Spinner first appeared in 1988 in Doom Patrol Volume 2, number 14, created by writer Paul Kupperberg and artist Eric Larson, who obviously went on big with Image Comics with the Savage Dragon. And Dorothy was introduced in the comics as a young girl who was given up for adoption by her mother when, her daughter was born with like an ape face and hairy arms. And because of this, she kind of grew up isolated from society with only imaginary friends to keep her company. But she obviously discovers that, hey, she has the power to bring those friends to life. And that's what puts her on the radar for the Doom Patrol. But no direct lineage to the Chief in the comics. So that's a major difference here on the TV show.
So in the comics, Dorothy is not the chief's daughter then,
No,
Charles?
she's not. No, she's not.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so...
Because I only reached that huge tome that is, of course, the Grant Morrison run. And so I did not know that that her and the chief are not related.
Yeah, that's definitely something the TV series came up with. So, so I thought that was kind of interesting to mention. And then a very obscure Doom Patrol character named Horst Eisman was brought up during the exchange between the chief and Willoughby Kipling when the chief summons Willoughby, and Willoughby tries to to get the Doom Patrol back to normal size, but Kipling says, well, hey, I don't have that kind of power, but this guy named Eisman might. And the Eisman he's referring to is presumably Horst Eisman, this very obscure character that appeared in Morrison's Doom Patrol run, where he first appeared in Doom Patrol Volume 2, number 27, as a multi-billionaire arms dealer who collects bizarre artifacts from around the globe, including the painting that ate Paris, a.k.a. the painting that Mr. Nobody and the Beard Hunter are currently trapped in on the TV show. And in the comics, his observatory in the Alps gets invaded by the Brotherhood of Dada, which was a supervillain group headed up by Mr. Nobody, who ended up stealing the painting. So I kind of wondered if, maybe that's a kind of a hint that maybe we'll get to see the Brotherhood of Dada at some point on the TV show. Fingers crossed.
Well, you know what? So far, Charles, all your dreams have come true. Your Doom Patrol dreams have come true, between the Candlemaker and others, which we shall not mention right now because, we'll get into it. But so far, it seems like they've been listening to your wishes. You've had kind of your own Candlemaker listening to you when it comes to Doom Patrol.
Well, actually, no. I guess I shouldn't talk about that secret wish I had. So if that's the case, I should make another wish that Doom Patrol gets picked up for at least another 5 seasons. But so fingers crossed.
If the right people are listening.
If the right people are listening and I don't bring about the end of the world in the process, we'll see. We'll see. I'll give it my best shot. How's that for a promise? All right. So let's get into our topics. Topic number 1, let's talk about the Chief and Dorothy, which are obviously very central characters in this episode. And let's throw in the Candlemaker, since we were talking about him, and also Willoughby Kipling, because those two kind of circle that kind of character development in this episode for the Chief and Dorothy. So Nick, first question to you, sir, as we play our little
for $1,000.
For $1,000, yes. What did you make of Abigail Shapiro's debut as Dorothy Spinner?
Well, you know what, Charles? I'd actually mentioned in our season 1 recap of the show that I very much got a Freaks vibe from the show. And we get that even more so here, the incredibly controversial 1932 Todd Browning film. Here it's right at the head of everything because we get a freak show and it's an incredibly uncomfortable scene. At least I felt it was very uncomfortable. And I must say, singer Abigail Shapiro, she's actually a singer. She's a signed artist and stuff. So evidently she's got some great pipes, and I hope she'll get to showcase these pipes of hers during the course of the show. She does an incredible job, and though the actress is only 20 years old, you could never tell. It's between her performance and the makeup, it is very convincing.
Yeah, the costuming, and she I don't know if they're doing body doubles here or what, but she does have that little girl vibe to her, even though, like you said, she's 20 years old. Maybe she's just, I don't know, not as physically developed yet or not, but she, I'm definitely looking forward, if she does have that musical talent that you say, I have to think at some point we're going to see her in Peeping Tom's Cabaret on Danny the Street at some point, belting out some disco classic or something.
I really hope so. And you know what? Funny story. She is American, but she has a great British accent. And if anybody's wondering, because I tend to pay attention to these faux accents and non-faux accents. She sold me. And apparently the story is she learned it from the Harry Potter movies. Well, and I say more power to her. She apparently sat down and watched the entire Harry Potter series of movies. And that's where she learned to enunciate. Because she also had apparently put the false teeth in and stuff and tried to enunciate. But we have to think she's also wearing prosthetics and false teeth.
Yeah, the appliances. Yeah, that has to be very difficult, especially if you're not speaking with your normal accent. I have to think she was probably watching a lot of Emma Watson as Hermione, studying her performance, because that's the kind of vibe I got. That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you, Nick, was what you thought of her English accent. I know.
I was convinced she was British. That's how sold I was.
Well, that's good. That speaks to her acting ability, because obviously, especially when you're paired in scenes with Timothy Dalton, you really have to be able to carry that off, or it's going to come off as even more noticeably phony if you can't.
That's right.
Because of Dalton's strong accent, that if by comparison you've got to have that at least in the ballpark range, that level of authenticity, or it's not going to seem genuine.
But you know what? It's interesting that it's almost easier, I've noticed, for American actors to fake a British accent, aside, of course, from his name is Dick Van Dyke, doing a terrible British accent in Mary Poppins. We
have to apologize. We as Americans continually have to apologize for Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins.
Even though, as much as I love Mr. Van Dyke, I mean, he's a fantastic actor and everything else, but, obviously you couldn't buy Dick Van Dyke's accent, but for the most part, Americans doing British accents, it tends to work, compared to Brits doing American accents, as we've seen multiple times in Doctor Who episodes, they don't work.
Yeah, I think the reason we don't see many American characters on Doctor Who is just for that reason. That apparently you wouldn't think this, but apparently an American accent is tougher than a English accent. But there we are, apparently.
It's very, very weird.
Exactly. But yeah, kudos to Abigail. I think she has a great performance here. I think she's very earnest. She's very positive. You notice even with all the adversity that she goes through, and we do see a lot of that, especially during the carnival scenes where she's trotted out in a cage as the eight-face girl. Even with all that, she still tries to have a sunny attitude and a very upbeat attitude. And even when people around her are like Jane or Cliff or somebody snapping at her, she still wants to be their friend. And I think
she keeps that happy-go-lucky vibe,
right,
or tries to keep it anyway.
And I think a lot of people would probably find that annoying, but I don't get that from Abigail Shapiro's performance at all. I think, that's who Dorothy is, and that's who she is in the comics. Just that kind of very nice person. And I'm really glad that character trait was brought into this TV series instead of giving her a much more jaded, darker outlook.
Yeah, because if you think about it, being behind the bars for so many years, you'd almost develop more of a feral personality, as it were, or very
antisocial.
Hostile, and very hostile towards the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. Yet it seems that the bars have not broken her gentle spirit.
Right. Now, she does, she is apparently stuck in this form over several decades, and I'm sure we're going to get much more of a background of why that is in later episodes. But Dorothy is who she is on the surface. She tries to be. Now, it doesn't mean that she doesn't have her own darkness, as we'll see with the Candlemaker, and especially kind of at the end of this episode where, she's lying in bed after the chief has kind of tucked her in for the night, and the Candlemaker kind of drops this little bombshell that, oh, hey, your father's dying. And, it tries to convince her to make a wish.
I was actually going to ask you, Charles.
Yes.
I don't know how much of a Wes Craven fan you are, Because
a little bit, yeah.
Because I got very much a Wes Craven's Wishmaster vibe from this.
Okay.
For
I'm not familiar with it, but why don't you explain that?
No, well, because Wishmaster, it was a 1987 Wes Craven film. Once again, no surprise, starring Robert Englund, not as Freddy Krueger, but, just like Tim Burton loves Johnny Depp,
Yep.
Wes Craven loved Robert Englund.
Right.
And the concept of Wishmaster is pretty much kind of like the Candlemaker's modus operandi, as in the Wishmaster is a djinn from the Far East who grants wishes but with disastrous consequences. So
almost like a monkey's paw, where you regret
Faust, if you will.
Yeah. So with where you end up having serious regrets over the wish that you made.
Yeah, or you make a certain wish, and of course there are all the consequences behind it. Kind of like, I suppose, one could almost compare it to Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time. Where you kind of, magic always comes with a price, which is a phrase I absolutely love, and I almost kind of swear by because it's a fantastic phrase.
Right.
But I guess that's the concept behind Wishmaster, and I very much got that Wishmaster vibe with the Candlemaker. And
be careful what you wish for, especially when the Candlemaker's involved. Yes, that is definitely true. Because yes, the Candlemaker surprise has his own agenda, as anyone who's read the comics knows. But I won't spoil it here because obviously we've got a lot of episodes to talk about, and I want to let that play out on its own. I'm not gonna ruin that for people. So.
You tease you.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm all about the drama there. All right. So we did get a little bit of the Candlemaker. Now the Chief, meanwhile, his relationship with Dorothy obviously is very complex, as we learned in season 1. She's the daughter of his little love tryst with a kind of a devolved human that more kind of almost like a
Sasquatch.
A Sasquatch, yeah, that kind of.
I mean, I don't want to seem mean, but that's the impression I got.
Yeah, exactly, and there's actually like a very humorous exchange where Cliff and Jane that we can talk about maybe during our quotes.
We will get to that.
All right, yeah, as we saw in season 1, the Chief has this very interesting tryst with this very hairy kind of Cro-Magnon faced.
I suppose you could
woman.
say, primitive.
Yes, primitive. But she also has these extreme psychic powers, and those powers have obviously been passed on to Dorothy. And based off what we're seeing so far, especially with the Candlemaker, that the Chief is very concerned about those powers. So much so that he kind of kept Dorothy hidden away on Danny the Street, and for several decades. And now that they're together again, the Chief is, being a parent to her. And it comes at a time when everybody else in the Doom Patrol hates him so much because of the big revelation of the Chief being responsible for their creation and all their various accidents. So, what did you think of the Chief, his relationship with Dorothy? Do you feel it's genuine, or that he genuinely cares for her, or do you think it's just another, the Chief being having his ulterior agenda?
You know what? It's always difficult to tell with the Chief because now knowing what we know,
right?
You never know what's actually hiding behind the next door. I want to think in this case, I'm kind of going in here with some naivete, thinking that he does love this girl, because if you think that everything he's done has been for her, and the fact that he wants to do other things, which we will get to in future episodes, is all because of her. And so I think there's some there's concern, there's love. I mean, not to mention the fact that whenever one of the members of the Doom Patrol try to either insult her or make fun of her, he's immediately there backing her up.
Right.
And so I have a feeling that there is genuine love. But, what we actually got here with the Chief in this episode is you can tell he's incredibly tormented by what he has done to our heroes. And I think he is trying to do everything in his power to make things right. And I don't know about you, Charles. I mean, I know that you're watching City of Angels, but
yes.
Going back to the series that spawned City of Angels, Penny Dreadful, I very much got a Malcolm Murray vibe in this episode. Because Malcolm Murray, to not give it too much away for folks who want to watch Penny Dreadful, is also an incredibly tormented character for things that he has done. And
played by Timothy Dalton, yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I think Timothy Dalton does a fantastic job at playing this style of tormented characters, which have a lot on their backs and that they're carrying with them. And that's why I got the Malcolm Murray vibe. I'm not the kind of guy to bear a grudge, but in this case, I am kind of still with the Doom Patrol in finding it hard to reconcile what they now know with how they devoted they were to the Chief. And I think it will take a great while for them to forgive him.
So do you think that the reason the showrunners decided to make Dorothy the Chief's daughter in this series was they knew this revelation would come out, and they needed to make the Chief at least a little bit more sympathetic as a character?
I think you make a good point there, because you and I were talking off air, because you were telling me that in the comics Dorothy is not the Chief's daughter,
right?
And it's purely done for the show. And I think it actually might be a plot point to where they want us to feel some sympathy for this guy, because I think most audience members, unless, they have whatever, they probably are with us saying, how can you have any love for this guy?
Right.
And I agree with you. I think it might be the fact of saying he did what he did, but he's doing it because he loves his daughter so much. And it's a proof of how the lengths a father will go to for his daughter. So I think that's the main reason, is maybe sympathy, but also the fact of, because we also get, and we'll get to it, I'm sure, the parental relationships, and a lot of parental relationships in this show are not the best.
No,
yeah.
No, and that's kind of, and that's a key theme to this show is that that the Doom Patrol comes to realize that, well, all their natural relationships are horrible, and they end up having to rely on each other as their true family, because they've either been disowned or left for dead or what have you, that or treated so horribly that they're almost forced to rely on each other as a support system. And I think that's why adding Dorothy here at this point helps to sell that, at least especially as far as the Chief, because as you said, by this point, after the revelation of him being responsible for their powers in their creation, that there's no logical reason why you should want to like this guy, or at least continue to support him. But now that you see his concern for Dorothy, how he, like you said, anytime somebody comes after Dorothy, even in a slightest trivial way, he's right there to defend her, because, hey, he's her father. And what father, you would want the Chief defending his daughter, right? So it kind of makes the Chief, I think, a much more complex character. He's not just like, at least, so far as what we've been presented with, that he's not just this man looking out for his own agenda, his ultimate goal. We're presented here with the idea that, yes, he did what he did for his daughter. The accidents were caused because he wants to live one day longer than his daughter.
That's right, exactly. But you know what? And funny enough, the fact of parents always be there, such terrible parents in this show, for some reason it made me think of Roald Dahl's stories. Because anybody who's read a Roald Dahl book, the parents are either dead or they're terrible.
Right.
And I think if Roald Dahl had been alive and could have written for DC Comics, or would have been able to do something in the TV, where I actually think he did do something, but he would be great in this kind of thing, because it's very Dahl-esque, as it were, when it comes to parenting.
And you came this close to saying Dalek.
I know, exactly. The Whovian in me was like, is it Daleks or Daleks?
Yeah. Daleks. Yeah. I just thought it was amusing. Willoughby Kipling. We haven't talked about Willoughby yet. He makes his return. Obviously, we were both very excited about this because he was so great in season 1. The Chief,
and as Whovians as well.
And to have it, there's that Doctor Who connection because obviously he played Canton Everett Delaware III on Series 6 of Doctor Who, and was fantastic at that. Obviously, Supernatural fans know him from Supernatural, so I don't really have to explain him. I shouldn't have to. But here, the Chief is extremely reluctant to call on Willoughby for help. He only does so after, weeks of failed experiments, trying to restore the Doom Patrol to normal size. And it's only finally when he feels like his back is against the wall. He goes through this whole big ritual, which I thought was rather amusing. Like he's singing Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter by I'm blanking on the Herman's Hermits, and he's got the ukulele. He slices his palm open, and he's got this rather glittery parasol. And I almost expected him to do like a dance number in his wheelchair to make that happen. But finally, Kipling shows up, and Kipling wants more than what the Chief, at least initially, is willing to give. And there's a price. As you were talking about magic having a price. Well, this is, again, another instance where we're told magic has a price. And Kipling says, well, hey, I don't have a lot of magic. So if you want me to do this, you're going to have to give me the painting plus, that necklace that you're wearing that is apparently giving you at least some semblance of immortality. Yeah. So what did you make of that deal?
Well, you know what? As we had mentioned before, I love this character. As much as I do the man who plays him. But you know what? Because I was actually thinking to myself, is he being curmudgeonly, cynical, and downright douchey with the Chief? Yeah. Or is it because those are the laws of magic, and you have to have a powerful artifact in order to do this? So I don't know, because it almost seemed to me like he enjoys seeing Niles squirm, kind of having him at his mercy, because it almost seems like he's taunting him when they meet up. He's like, I love to see you sing, or I love to hear you sing and stuff. So I don't know whether he's just, like I said, a douchey chap, or whether, it's just the laws of magic. It was hard for me to tell. But, I was wondering, because I'm like, I think, though, it might just be Kipling being Kipling, as in he doesn't do favors for anybody. And so, that's the price you have to pay.
Kind of like John Constantine, that he's obviously...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I thought to myself, he must have some humanity, but evidently not. So...
Well, I think he does have a little bit, because... and I think mostly their relationship stems from this science versus magic rivalry, because Kipling is all about
a Tony Stark, Doctor Strange thing.
Exactly. Only with like slightly less egos, very slightly. As we talked about on your Happiness and Darkness podcast, free plug there. That that natural butting of heads. Willoughby is all about the magic. The Chief is a scientist, and ideologically, that's where they remain. So I think they kind of enjoy needling each other. And if you notice later in the episode, they share a drink. So they obviously do have at least a fondness for one another. It's not just, I need you for this, and that's all I wanted, that's all I wanted, get out of here.
But do you think it's because it's the laws of magic, then it's not maybe coming from a place where Kipling is enjoying seeing Niles kind of beg him to do stuff?
It's hard to say with Kipling, because like John Constantine, he keeps his cards very close to the vest. But he does make the comment that he says, look, you're not going to get me to say that I'm your friend, but the attitude that he has is like, look, I actually care about what happens to you, so you can rely on me for help if you need it.
Yeah. No, because he's kind of making eyes at his amulets, kind of
Yes.
thing, almost a shiny
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
eyes.
he's going to give him the attitude though, also of like, are you sure you want to do this? Because you're giving up an awful lot here. You're giving up your extended life.
And also, we don't know whether Kipling might actually have clairvoyance as well, and might be able to predict or see the future.
Right. Now, of course, the big twist to all this is that as the Chief and Dorothy are having that conversation, or excuse me, as the Chief and Kipling are having that conversation, Dorothy overhears it.
That's right.
And that's where she learns that what her father gave up to get the team back to normal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in fact, then she's the one kind of carrying it, and it
Right.
will carry over in future episodes. But of course, we won't get into that just yet.
Yeah. I'm guessing by your tone that you've watched the episodes 2 and 3.
Maybe.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. I know. It's very tempting.
I might have gone ahead and read ahead, as they say.
Yeah. So I'm kind of I have to confess, I did the same. So for everybody out there that doesn't want those spoiled, we'll try very hard not to spoil what's coming up. So,
yeah, we will enforce some restraint here. We'll do our best.
Exactly. All right. Anything else about these characters?
No, I'm good.
All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about Cliff and Jane for a moment. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Cliff not taking the revelation very well. Neither is Jane. And we kind of get the hints of where their character arcs are going to be going this season, because we get a little flashback with Cliff. His where he tells his father basically, you're not invited to the wedding, and because Kate, his soon-to-be wife, doesn't want him there, and he kind of has to come up with this explanation like, well, look, you cheated on Mom with this girl at the Dairy Queen, and so maybe it's not a good.
And then you did the dirty during another wedding or something, I believe.
So maybe it's not that great of an idea for you to be there, especially if his mom is there, I guess. But the chief, or excuse me, Cliff's father obviously has a very different reaction, and then that he lashes out and says, look, you need to be your own man and stop having Kate tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And so what did you make of that little blow up that Cliff and his father had?
Okay, well, I will say to a certain extent, at least in that scene, it did seem like Cliff was a little bit whipped by his fiancée, wife, what have you.
Right.
Because he seems incredibly spineless in that moment. Because we've seen him in other, pre-Robot Man. We've seen him very much be his own man, not caring about what anybody thinks. But it almost seems like he's almost subservient to this woman. Because otherwise he's like, I'm the man, nobody tells me what to do. And
and he kind of becomes that because he ends up cheating on her.
Yeah, that's right. And which we see at the very beginning, I believe, of season 1, where, he's exactly. But I just thought it was interesting to see him almost cower, because he seems almost afraid of talking to, the old man, as it were. But I like that flashback, and I think it was interesting. We got a few flashbacks in this episode, and we will get to the other ones that we got.
Right.
But it was very odd to see Cliff not being so kind of, his own man, as it were, because as Robot Man, he doesn't care what anybody says. He'll do his thing regardless.
Right. And I think so. Do you think that maybe some of that anger of that he did kind of become whipped by his, to use a loose term here, that he was whipped by Kate and how he treated his father? Do you think there's some kind of repressed anger there that's now coming out?
I believe so.
Because
I mean,
because of what happened with the chief. It's almost like a transference.
Yeah, I mean, it's all exploding right now because I think it comes from a point to where he thought, oh my, what's happened to me and everything else. He finds out why he is the way he is, and it's just, kind of exploding. It's like,
yeah.
It was just an accident waiting to happen, and I think that's why. Granted, he is already not the calmest of people.
Right.
It takes nothing to explode. But here, it was just like he's right out there, and yeah, for sure. But I think it was maybe the fact that he was so suppressed by his fiancée / his then wife.
Yeah.
I think it was just repress, and then just going to explode. It just is a human thing.
I'm sure it's not just that one incident, but I think that's something that contributed to it.
Yeah.
And I think that with this revelation, like you said, he is just unloading at this point. There's so much anger that's coming out of him because I'm sure he's guessing, probably of the opinion that, well, I guess I could kind of sort of come to terms with it because it was random chance. But now to find out, oh, the chief caused it, it was intentional, and my life was deliberately taken from me, that he understandably has so much rage in this regard. And the way he's dealing with it, at least while tiny size, is he's going out and killing rats.
Yeah.
He's like at you almost wait for the return of Admiral Whiskers at this point, where like he's laying out little bits of cheese, hoping to draw them out, and then just punches them as hard as he can and kills them that way. And he's apparently keeping a tally with a to him a giant piece of chalk on the side of a wall. So
what? It almost made me feel like, I don't know how much of a gamer you are.
Right.
It kind of made me think
I used to be as a kid. Yeah.
Made me think of like the Mortal Kombat bonus level, where between one fight and another you have to beat up as many rats as possible. I was like, if Robot Man was a Mortal Kombat character, or even Street Fighter, where you had to destroy the car or whatever, you'd have the level of beating up the rats for some reason. That's just my old gamer brain going off there.
So you're probably out there going, finish him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Robot Man wins. Fatality.
Nice. Boss level. No. All right. Now, meanwhile, Jane, as apparently going to be her season 2's character arc, is that she's having problems with the underground. Her personalities are getting together, and they're not happy because Jane is essentially drugging herself into oblivion, and as a way to kind of well, Cliff's reaction is to lash out and be angry. Jane's reaction to the revelation is to like, I want to just numb myself with drugs. And apparently her personalities are not very happy about it. They leave her little notes either within the underground or even in the physical world that it's, quote, time for a change. So what do you make of this new character arc for Jane?
Well, you know what? It seems like the theme is everybody's unraveling, and how do they deal with that? Because you have Cliff beating up rats, you have Jane numbing herself with the serum. Right. You have I think we see this with the other characters that we will get to, is how do you deal with unraveling, or a big reveal, and how do you deal with that? And Jane is self-medicating, I think, as one would say, maybe with PTSD, having spoken to a lot of vets, the term would be to self-medicate from a trauma, and right. She's self-medicating with the serum. And I think it's interesting that she is actually struggling to keep a toehold in her role as primary, because all the other personalities, like you were saying, are like, we can't do this. You have to kind of leave the rest of the group. You have to do something else. I think it's very interesting. And I think psychologically, it's a very interesting journey that she will go on, because, my question was, which I was thinking to myself, what do these other personalities want exactly? I mean, why are they not happy with her, going on the road that she's going. I understand because she wants to be primary, and so she's kind of suppressing the others. But my question is, I wonder whether at some point Jane will turn around and ask the others, what do you want me to do exactly?
Right.
Or what is your end game, as it were?
Yeah. You know, is it that the personalities are trying to snap her back out of this?
Yeah.
And get back into the primary role, or is it basically this? So far, is it like an honest revolt within herself, where she's having to fight off parts of herself that are either have their own agendas or are just being so protective of Kay Chalice, the young girl. That's the core of her persona. Are they being so protective of her? Is that where that's coming from? So, but from a story standpoint, just the idea of like, hey, you've got a schizophrenic superhero that is battling her own personalities in a struggle for dominance over her own persona. That's a pretty cool idea.
It is.
And
the fact that you also have her smoking marijuana as well to numb the pain,
right?
Hence the whole thing of self-medicating. Because, I'm no psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, but everybody kind of uses something to self-medicate. Like I said, Cliff with the rats, her with either drugs or with a serum. So it's, I think the main theme is how do we deal with trauma.
Like their coping mechanism.
That's right. Yeah.
And
that's right.
And it happens to be Cliff is punching rats. Jane is just numbing herself with marijuana or that serum. And but it's almost just that but there's obviously that little bit of denial because they're not facing directly
they're not literally facing their demons either figuratively or literally, because Jane has literal demons.
Yes, she does.
But it's,
yeah, and obviously Jane's are much more complicated because of that, of her history of sexual abuse by her father.
Correct.
So but it's obviously makes for great stories, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this comes out. Anything else about these characters?
No, I mean, what I thought was interesting was how it morphed from a parental relationship into a buddy-buddy relationship. Because in the first season, you can see that Cliff literally takes her under his wing, as it were, as a surrogate daughter. Mm-hmm. Whereas here, they are much more buddy-buddy. Because she's happily smoking on the biggest joint in the planet, and he's kind of sitting beside her, and they're talking about the most trivial of things. But I was like, they're no longer father and daughter. They're like two friends at a bar talking about ridiculous things over a drink, or in this case, over a joint. So that's what I thought was an interesting how their relationship has changed.
Yeah. I mean, if I recall correctly, in season 1, Jane confronted Cliff about that. She didn't want to be
the surrogate daughter.
She didn't want to be She didn't want to be the surrogate daughter, and told Cliff as much. So now, like you said, their relationship has evolved into now it's more of like a friendship, and possibly more. We can see obviously where that goes, but they obviously do care for one another, even though they're both such angry people.
Yeah, and they find a common ground in their anger, because they both have something to be mad about, which is the chief,
right?
Which is the common ground, and hence why they are.
Yeah, it gives them it gives them something to bond over, really.
Exactly. It's like, I hate the chief, so do you. Come on, let's chill together.
Exactly.
Let's talk about it.
Exactly. Let's just we'll light one up and kick back and let's just bag on him for a while. So yeah.
Exactly.
All right. Topic number 3. Let's talk about Rita and Vic a little bit. Rita, apparently her character arc this season is going to be, I want to be a superhero. How do I make that happen? And this is something I think a lot of Doom Patrol fans have been waiting for, because after she spent a lot of season 1 not in control of her powers, feeling sorry for herself, and that we want to see her as a more active participant in the Doom Patrol, fighting the bad guys, being that Elasti-Woman that we know from the comics. So in that she's apparently reaching out to Vic and looking, because obviously Vic is the more established standard superhero as Cyborg, and looking for him for advice. So he's kind of sort of overseeing her development here. So what did you make of that new character arc for Rita?
You know what? First off, I think it's really interesting that these are the two that are keeping it together the most and not coming unwound, which is almost ironic, seeing that Rita's main problem was keeping it together as Elasti-Woman, not kind of melting.
Yeah.
And after the revelation, she's the one who's keeping it together. And I thought that was a very interesting, almost kind of on the nose a little bit, but maybe it was just me seeing it that way.
Right.
But she definitely comes out as one of the stronger characters in this episode, though you can still tell she's very much full of self-doubt as she's struggling to learn how to apply her powers to become a superhero, because we see her doing all the hoo, ha, etc. kind of thing, but she's not able to extend and use her powers. But of course, like you were mentioning, who's she going to choose as her mentor? Of course, Cyborg.
Right.
But once again, talk about the common ground, because she is struggling with her issues. He's struggling with his, and we will, of course, when we get to episode 2, we'll see more of that.
Yes.
But
I think it's an interesting pairing. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That Rita and Vic, obviously in season 1, they didn't spend a lot of time together as characters, because Rita was spending so much time with Larry.
That's right. She tends to mother everybody.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, and that's a bit, essentially it was primarily Rita and Larry for most of the first season. So I like the fact that they're changing things up a little bit. And while Larry's off doing his own thing, which we'll talk about here in a minute, Rita, to shake up the dynamic is they came up with a way to move her character forward and also have her interact with someone that she really had very little connection with in the first season.
Oh, yeah, no, you make a wonderful point. And I think it's actually, like you said, it's an interesting dynamic of throwing characters together and see what happens. But I guess it's once again the whole common ground thing, because like we were talking about Robot Man and Jane having that mutual, very strong hatred for the Chief.
Right.
We know that Cyborg is a natural hero. She wants to be a hero, so there is that common ground of them coming together in that sense of like, I want a mentor, who am I going to look to? And also, we see that here, like I said, we'll see in episode 2 more about Cyborg's problems, but here he's focusing a lot on keeping an eye on Mr. Nobody and the Beard Hunter, making sure they're trapped in the painting. So he's kind of obsessing over that, because we notice it's something that he does repeatedly, apparently. He kind of always checks the painting saying, are these guys still in check?
It's like he's fixated on it.
Yeah, there is that obsession. I found there was that obsession because I guess it's the hero's obsession to make sure the world hasn't exploded while you were gone kind of thing.
Right.
So he's constantly doing that. But I would say he doesn't seem 100% invested in wanting to be Rita's trainer at first. Because she's like, you're not the best trainer, you're showing up late, and all this kind of thing. But
we kind of saw a little bit in this episode when everyone was running as best as they could across, the giant floor to go rescue Dorothy from the rats. Along the way, Vic, he kind of freaks out a little bit. He has almost like a panic attack, a little PTSD. You were talking about PTSD earlier. I think that's kind of what Vic is going through, because we saw little fleeting images of him in the ant farm and other, his traumatic surgeries and whatnot. Vic has a lot to emotionally, psychically, to deal with because of all the trauma that he's experienced. The fact that his body, over half his body is gone, like Cliff, and also, just the other things that he's been subjected to over time. So he's struggling with this, and Rita is looking out for him. And it almost becomes, this little bit of disappointment for her when she's out there in the garden she figures out how to elongate her arm and grab what I call a weeping angel statue.
Yeah.
In the garden, and she's so excited about it, she wants to run right back in and tell Vic what she did, but he's moved out.
That's true.
And it's this big kind of a letdown for her. But it's kind of interesting to see those two, how they've developed this relationship already in just this one episode.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? And I hope that they will maintain that, because it actually is an interesting relationship to keep an eye on, and I hope it won't be just kind of a flash in the pan, as it were.
Yeah, and obviously, as a comic fan, I would love Rita's to kind of up her game as a superhero, because I want to see her become giant-sized, like we know she can be in the comics.
Well, definitely, yeah.
We saw her kind of tiny sized already because they've been shrunk down, but I want to see the giant version of Elasti-Woman.
Agreed.
I think that would be a lot of fun. All right. Lastly, let's talk about Larry and Gary, and I'm sure that was intentional to have their names be similar. So Larry, he's apparently his character arc this time is to focus on how horribly he treated his kids before his accident. Yep. And the ramifications of that. So we have the negative spirit bringing up memories for of these awful memories of where they're like Larry's son comes in with this model of the rocket that he's going to be, the X-1 that is going to be taking up into space. And because it's not exactly technically perfect, Larry grabs it and is like, look, this doesn't belong here, snaps one of the wings off, is like, look, well, let me just, let me put it on, no, screw that, come back here and then we'll do this right the first time or the next time in the morning. Mm-hmm. And his wife is very upset because it's like, well, as far as there's his son was concerned, it was perfect already when he gave it to him. And so his negative spirit is kind of like forcing him to confront that. And it shows how much baggage Larry still has to deal with.
Yeah.
And what was your reaction to that?
Well, you know what? Granted, we will get more of this story in Time Patrol, kind of looking ahead. But what we see here is that Larry was not exactly the poster child for parenthood, talking about bad parents. And rather than encourage his son, he tended to, I'm not saying put him down literally, but kind of, because if I had been Gary, I would have felt a little bit put down. And I did feel that the scene in which, Gary presents Larry with his model of the rocket ship was my heart was broken when I saw that, because it seems that Larry is a bit of a douche, because he's kind of criticizing the model, which is supposed to be a gift for him.
And, from his kids, yeah.
I don't think he's doing it to be mean, but as I mentioned, we can tell he's not exactly either the best father compared to, we were talking about, the Chief and Dorothy. And I just wonder whether it's just, I don't know if he's being just a douche because he's a douche or because he's nerdy that way of, it's not exactly precise, let me put it together and stuff. So there was a little bit upsetting, to be honest.
Yeah, it obviously doesn't really paint Larry in the best light, but I kind of wondered if it was, what we're going to explore is that Larry had this resentment toward his children because of his own repressed sexuality. Mm-hmm. We knew that he was in denial about it. He lived in the closet. And so do you think maybe that because he wasn't with the person he wanted to be with, that the kids, the result of that union with a wife that he didn't love, do you think some of that might have came from that?
It's interesting because you talked about repressed rage with Cliff. Right. This might be another case of repressed rage and frustration of, like you were saying, I can't be with the person I love, hence I'm going to explode in the face of somebody who might, and unlike Robot Man, where he's kind of exploding in the face of somebody who deserves it, in inverted commas. Here, I think one could almost say it's a case of kicking the cat. You know what, I'm not happy with the current state of affairs. I don't want to be married to you. I don't want, and as these are the children we had together, I associate them with you, and hence I don't love them or like them. And so it almost seems like I think it's a question of kicking the cat in that sense, which I don't condone.
Yeah.
But if I were to explain it, I would say that's why he acts the way he does.
Yeah, and obviously we don't excuse it. It's horrible behavior. And I think that's what the negative spirit is trying to get him to confront. Is like, hey, you were kind of a dick to your kids. Maybe you should try to address that. And it comes at a time when Larry's son Gehring, who is now this adult apparently suffering from depression, is preparing to kill himself, and he ends up doing that.
Yeah.
And you wonder how much Gary's life was screwed up because of how Larry treated him, and then went away because of his accident.
I definitely think that is the case, and I think that's like I said. I think it's all the case of once again we're shown. It's almost, I think the writers almost showing us what bad parenting can lead to.
Right. The consequences. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's
and it's forcing the patrol to kind of like in the midst of all this chaos with the chief, that they're having to confront a lot of their own failings as human beings.
Yeah.
At least the human beings they used to be.
Yeah, because it could almost be okay, you're mad at this guy for turning you into the people you are now, but almost like before you throw the first stone, look at yourself as well.
Yeah. The old adage, he who cast the first stone, or that whole thing. So
yes.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. All right. Anything else about this episode you want to talk about?
No, I'm pretty much. I think I'm pretty much talked out when it comes to this episode. What I can say is I really, really enjoyed it, and yes, it did lead me to binge episode 2 and 3. That's how much I enjoyed it.
Well, that's certainly nothing you are alone in, sir. Yes. So I guess that's a good sign that we liked this episode so much we couldn't wait to watch more. So,
yes,
and I'm sure that's what they were, and I'm sure that's what HBO Max and DC Universe were hoping. So, all right. Do you have any favorite quotes of the episode?
Indeed, I do, and I'm going to try and keep them as clean as I can, Charles.
Go for it.
Okay. So we have the exchange between Jane and Cliff first off, where she's like,
right.
"Effing chief." And he's like,
yep.
"Effing chief is a effing right. And what's up with his effing daughter? She's just forever 11." It's like, because that tween shit is going to grow ancient real effing fast. So that was one. The other ones that I like was between, actually, we're talking about it, Larry's wife and Larry was, when she says to him, it was a present to show how proud he was of his dad. And Larry's like, and now his dad is going to teach him how to do it the right way. And his wife goes, "That's funny. I thought he did do it the right way." So I was like, damn, girl, you tell him, you put him in his place. And then we did mention the back and forth between Jane and Cliff.
Right.
I laughed like there was no tomorrow with where Jane and Cliff Jane says, "I mean, okay, we're basically chemistry experiments, right? He threw some shit together in a beaker and out popped us." And Cliff's like, "Yeah." Jane's like, "We're supposed to be weird." Cliff, "Yeah." Jane, he effed somebody to get her. What the F do you have to F to get effing that? And Cliff's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Okay, on the count of 3, we both blurt out what we think he effed, okay? 1, 2, and now that was hilarious.
And then the chief shows up and interrupts it. Yeah. So, that was one of my favorite quotes. I love that. I thought that was, obviously, Cliff, Robot Man, is not very conducive to a clean podcast. So we had, as much as I would love to drop the F-bombs, I have to respect us, Rob Southgate, our head honcho, and so
that's why I kept it clean, because I love Mr. Rob Southgate.
Exactly. So out of respect for him and his network, the Southgate Media Group, we tried to tone that down, obviously, but If it was left up to me, just saying. All right. I'd be dropping F-bombs left and right. All right. I'm Irish. That comes with the territory. I loved Jane with Dorothy, where they kind of have, like, Jane kind of blows up at Dorothy for a little bit, and she goes, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blow up at you." And Dorothy excuse me. Dorothy replies, "It's okay. I know being a grown-up is hard, and sometimes you have to yell to get all the bad feelings out." So I love Dorothy's attitude
Yeah,
there.
it's very sweet.
It's very sweet. The Chief and Willoughby Kipling had some great exchanges, where the Chief gets kind of forced into begging for help at this point, and he goes, "Will you please help me get these people big?" And Kipling goes, "That kind of magic doesn't come for free." The Chief says, "Whatever it takes." Kipling replies, "I don't carry that kind of juice. Eisman might." And Chief replies, "Eisman? Good God." And then Kipling retorts, "Lego figures can't be choosers, Calder." So I thought that was a good.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, the Lego reference was cool.
Yep, Lego reference is good. And then lastly, Cliff and Jane, because Cliff and Jane never gets old as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed.
They're sitting around and by Danny the Brick, and Cliff goes, "You think Danny will ever grow big again?" Jane's like, "No clue." Cliff says, "I hope they do. Nobody deserves to be a brick." And Jane replies, "Maybe Danny wants to be a brick."
Subtle but effective.
Exactly. So I thought that was good. So what's your rating, sir?
I'm going to give this 8 out of 10 rat skin coats, as I think it was a strong start and interesting one. And I'm really looking forward to see where we go from here. Or I might have seen where we go from here. Just saying.
yeah, that cat's out of the bag.
Innocent baby face there.
Exactly. That was pretty funny when Cliff does have that kind of rat skin and he walks in like it's a cloak over him, and he looks at the Chief and goes, "Hole filled."
That's why I was like, yeah, rat skin coat. All right.
Yeah, you almost expected him to drop the mic right there at that moment. So I thought that was good. I'm giving it. I really enjoyed this opening. I give it 8.5 out of 10. Danny the Bricks, because I love the introduction to Dorothy. I loved just the conflict going on in the team, and and obviously setting up a lot of things to pay off down the road. And I think it's going to be a very promising season.
And I have a feeling we're not the only ones who binge watched all 3 episodes, Charles.
No.
I think we're not alone.
Yeah, if you have the restraint, kudos to you. You're a stronger person than I am, or Nick is.
Exactly.
So yeah, exactly. So kudos to you for your willpower.
Like we salute
in that regard. You should be a Green Lantern with that kind of willpower.
That's right. Exactly.
All right.
And you people.
Now we did get really quickly. We did get feedback that I want to read out. So in our Tell It to Titan Talk section, I know we've been off for a while, but thankfully somebody wrote in with some feedback, and it's somebody very familiar to those of you who listen to us on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Because Holly Mack writes in.
Oh, hey.
Holly from Wisconsin, one of the Five-ish fangirls on the Five-ish Fangirls podcast.
Definitely want to send a big shout out to the Five-ish Fangirls. Great set of ladies for sure.
Exactly. Highly recommended by both of us, I'm sure.
Yep.
So she writes in about Fun Size Patrol. She says, "Hey, Charles," and now I guess she gets to write in, "Hey, Nick, the Patrol is back and how I missed them. The opening in 1927 was interesting. Love Thunderclap Newman's Something in the Air as the team is being introduced by the Ape-Face Girl." So that was a nice little nod. I like that song too. I added that to my iPod because I loved it because of that episode. All the members being miniature is interesting. Jane and Dorothy being kindred spirits, both hearing voices inside their heads. That was an interesting bonding moment. Loved Dorothy and Cliff bonding until one of Dorothy's friends tried to see into his memories. Willoughby is up to his old tricks again, and I think at his Crowley-like best. There's a supernatural reference there. Cliff also facing down Dorothy's deer. I think she means the Wendigo. And tarantula monsters was brave. Though I'm wondering who wants her to do the wishing. Well, that's a villain called the Candlemaker. Stay tuned. Of course, Dorothy would overhear the conversation between Niles and Willoughby. A great start to the season. Can't wait to see how it all shakes out. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. So thank you, Holly. Great to hear from you.
Definitely, thank you very much.
Exactly. So, because you're always great on Next Stop Everywhere, and appreciate you writing in. Hope this isn't the last time, because we always love hearing from you. So, you got to write to us about the episodes 2 and 3, right? And if you want to be like Holly, please do write to us at TitanTalkCast@gmail.com. That's TitanTalkCast@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you. Love to know what your thoughts are on Doom Patrol Season 2 so far. And anything else you'd like us to talk about as we're reviewing Doom Patrol, or any thoughts. If you want to give us big praise for Nick because he's so awesome on this show, please do so. That's the perfect place to do it. Nick, how about you? Where can they reach you on the interwebs?
Well, you were very kind to name check the podcast that I do and the stuff that I do, Charles. But to go into a little bit of detail, when it comes to me, if superhero movies are your speed, I do also host, as Charles was saying, the Happiness and Darkness podcast, which you have been on quite a few times, Charles. And I look forward to having you back.
You will be again, sir.
I look forward to having you back again soon for sure. And of course, if you'd like to join me on there and discuss superhero movie of your choice, folks, feel free to send me an email at Happiness and Darkness. How? We are also on social media, or Facebook, where you'll find us as Happiness and Darkness. You can also follow us on Twitter, we're at High Darkness Pod, or on Instagram under Hidden Darkness. Also, for you country music lovers, I do host the Whiskey and Cigarettes show, where we play traditional country, today's country, and everything else in between. For more about that and how and where to tune in, visit our website, that's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. And finally, my latest project, Gold Standard, the Oscars movie podcast, where with Zan Sprouse and Rachel Friend, we are reviewing all the movies that won the Oscar for Best Picture from 1927's Wings to the present day. Thursday, July the 9th, we'll be discussing the third film to win Best Picture, which will be All Quiet on the Western Front. And should any listeners wish to join us for that discussion, they can message us on Twitter, we're at Oscars Gold, or Facebook, where you can find us as Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, or you can email us for a guest spot, or just share your thoughts on a particular movie at goldstandardoscars@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys, and we also appreciate the follow and support.
Well, that's awesome. And everybody, please check out Nick's podcasts. He was very kind enough to help us out here on Titan Talk, and I can think of no better way than to return the favor. And if nothing else, you're going to listen to some great podcasts. And now that he is becoming really heavily into the podcast, and here I am, he's so busy, and then here I am reaching out to him and trying to get him to do another one with me. So I really appreciate it. Nick, thank you so much. I really appreciate the help. And as for me, you can reach me on Twitter at Charles Skaggs, or Instagram at Charles Skaggs, or my blog of geeky things, if I can get the thing to work here. There we go. Come on, you.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're going to talk about all the stuff we talk about here on Titan Talk, including Titans, including Doom Patrol, including all kinds of comic book sci-fi news of my other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group, including Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast that I do with Jesse Jackson, where we talk all kinds of Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane adventures. And hey, Nick's on that podcast every once in a while too. So check that out. The Phantom Zone podcast that I also do with Jesse, where we talk, right now we're talking Stargirl, the DC Universe, and CW series, starring Breck Bassinger as Stargirl. It's been a nice little fun show. Essentially what I call Courtney the Injustice Slayer. It's a great little superhero show.
Great show.
And then, Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, wife of comic book artist Chris Sprouse, where we talk about all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, and a ton of pop culture references. And we always have a ball doing that. And so much so, Nick is like, that's who needs to be on my Gold Standard podcast.
Yep.
So,
that's where I found her out. You know, it's like, yeah, this girl's got talent.
Yes, she does. She does. So much so that, she puts me to shame. But you can't ask for a better co-host, apart from, of course, DJ Nick and Jesse Jackson. So, exactly. So, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Next time on Titan Talk, we're going to be talking episode 52, Time Patrol. And that's TYME, which is, of course, the second episode of Doom Patrol Season 2. Obviously, Nick and I, we kind of already watched it. But, if you probably already watched it, too, because it's so great. And so if you enjoyed it, and I hope you did, come on back next week as we talk Time Patrol. Nick, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, all I can say, Charles, it was a blast, and I definitely look forward to discussing episode 2. You know, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's just wonderful to talk about this new season. So thanks again, and definitely look forward to sharing thoughts when it comes to Time Patrol.
Definitely. And like I said, Nick, thank you so much. You really helped us out. You're always welcome here. We know we've talked about that. You know, like, I love talking to you. I had so much fun talking to you about this episode, and I can't wait to talk about the other episodes with you. I had a ball, and I hope everybody else thought so as you listen to our podcast here. And otherwise, everybody, thank you for listening. Hope you come back. Hope you write in. And then come on back next time for episode 52, Time Patrol. It's going to be a lot of fun as we meet Dr. Time and go back to the 70s and get our roller skates on to do some roller disco with Donna Summer right here on Titan Talk, the Titans podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.